So with no further ado, I will pass the microphone over to Peggy.
Thanks so much. We really do appreciate this relationship with the library. They've made it so much easier for us. And with the room we have today, this is a larger room than we had at the Barrington Village Hall. We wouldn't have been able to fit you all in there. So that's good. And particularly all of the electronic work that Sam does to set this up. So it is complicated to have it both a presentation in person as well as on Zoom. And she gets it all working smoothly. So we thank you very much for that. This is Community Education's last program for this season. This is the fourth. And so we're had a really good year with people coming. I do see some new faces, but we thank all of you who've come to all of the programs. We're glad that you've been here with us all this season. We'll come back again next winter with another series for you, so pay attention to the website. I know you're all ready for CFC's native plant sale. Some of you, I'm sure, have placed your pre-orders. Those can be picked up on Friday, May 1st, after 11 o'clock. If you come at 9, we'll say, wait, we're not ready to have you do it yet. Members can also shop on Friday, so that's a membership benefit to be there ahead of time. We do have a lot of the plants that we were not able to put in the pre-order because we didn't know whether they'd be available or not. We used to order them, and then when they weren't available, we had to do all sorts of refunds. So we found it's easier to tell you there will be more plants than were in the pre-order, and you'll have a good choice of those on Friday when you come in. The sale is open to the public on Saturday from 9 o'clock on. Also, we want to remind you about about CFC's Habitat Corridors program. We have some flyers over there about that. This is our service that for members is free. We can come to your house and help, our consultants will help you determine if you have a difficult spot, you're trying to figure out what to plant in wet shade, or just, needing some advice about what kind of plants would go well where in your yard. It's done by appointment. You make the appointments by calling or emailing the CFC office, and we'll get one scheduled. And I think a lot of people are still interested in having them happen before the plant sale. So if we recommend things, you'll be able to get them to put in the ground. So, okay, well, now the reason you're here is to hear Steve Barton's wonderful presentation about the wildlife that he's picked up on his trail cam. Some of you probably know this. He's an amazing photographer in his own right, separate from the trail cam. So wonderful, wonderful photos of wildlife. Steve is a retired veterinarian, a herpetologist, a bluebird, bumblebee, and frog monitor on CFC and forest preserve sites, and, as I mentioned, exceptionally skilled and an award-winning photographer. And the trail cam, of course, is the unique thing in his backyard. So you'll see treats of the kinds of things that he picks up there. It's really going to be a treat to see him. Steve requested that you hold your questions to the end. So keep in mind what it is you want to ask for, and he will have a question and answer period at the end. And those of you on Zoom, you can put your questions into chat, but we'll answer them at the end as well. So please welcome Steve.
Well, I want to thank everyone for coming out on a spring day when I'm sure you'd rather be out looking at ephemeral flowers and migrating birds and things like that. But we'll have a lot of wildlife here today. How do we get started? So my talk is going to run an hour. And if anyone needs to leave, go ahead and do what you need to do. You're not going to hurt my feelings. Okay, so I am a wildlife photographer, and this talk will have a lot of my photos in it as well as the trail cams. But the trail cams are videos, so it's fun to see behavior as well as just still shots. I do try to post an image every day on my social media. I'm Stephen_Barton on Instagram and just Stephen Barton on Facebook. If you like my photography, check it out there. All the images in this talk are mine and all the videos are mine, and I don't use any AI. So Peggy invited me to give this talk because she follows me on social media and she likes all of the videos that I post, like these raccoon siblings. And if any of you have a brother or sister, you know what this is all about. Fighting and wrestling and carrying on. But I post stuff like this all the time. Most of the photography and videos are from my yard, from our yard in Tower Lake. But I added a bunch of stuff from Citizens for Conservation property. I do take my trail cam out there periodically because this is a CFC sponsored talk, so you want to see stuff there. So I set it up on Flint Creek at Flint Creek Savannah for 4 or 5 days. And of course, the deer are curious, so they check out the camera, and the does come walking by, and the muskrats come swimming by. And we have beavers. Look how much bigger the beaver is than the muskrat. And raccoons forage for crayfish and frogs, feeling around with their dexterous little hands. The velvet bucks, they hang around in little bachelor packs before their antlers fully develop. They're not fighting and territorial at this stage. There's a carp swimming up the shallow part of the creek. There's a snapping turtle wading down. And here's a soft-shelled turtle. They have a leathery shell. The females get to be 18 inches. They have a long snorkel-like nose. They're more river turtles than they are pond and lake turtles. And so they'll swim up Flint Creek from the Fox River. There's another one. This is over just a couple of days. The creek is just a hotbed of activity. Great blue heron. Mallard ducklings. You get wood ducks too. So in our yard in Tower Lakes, we have, you want to know how do you get more wildlife in your yard? We have about 2 acres. There's woods behind us. It goes to a low swampy area that's not buildable, and that's all woods. There's woods on either side of the house and a little bit in front of the house. And when we moved in, it was choked with buckthorn. You couldn't walk through it except on a deer trail. We're zoned to have no unconnected external buildings. You're not supposed to have a shed out in your yard. And when we bought the house, it had a shed out in the yard. You couldn't even see it from the road. The buckthorn was so thick. We've been clearing it for 25 years and finally got it to where we want it because we don't have a work crew coming out twice a week like CFC work crews. But here's the edge of our yard with our yard on the right and the buckthorn on the left. You can see where we stopped, where it's not our property anymore. And we uncovered all these little apple trees and little hickory trees and little oak saplings, beautiful stuff. And in uncovering it, we found a lot of native plants, remnants that were still there, like this big patch of pen sedge and May-apples, bluebells, Dutchman's breeches, toothwort, occasional morel mushrooms, trillium, and of course bloodroot. And what we didn't have, we bought at CFC's plant sales and put in ourselves. And sometimes the deer let us keep a few of these things. I leave a couple of brush piles for habitat back in the woods. It's good for birds, it's good for insects, and sometimes the wildlife uses it too, like this opossum. I knew it was there because there were tracks in the snow, so I set up the trail cam. I put in a water feature, a pond, a plastic pond. It's 3 feet by 2 feet by 2 feet deep. I just dug a hole and stuck it in the ground. There's no electricity, there's no pump, there's no filter. I put some driftwood in there so that the frogs have a way to get out. When I started doing this years and years ago, I didn't know anything, so I put non-native water hyacinth in there. I don't do that anymore. It does get kind of stagnant over the winter, so every spring I bail it out with a bucket until it's empty. I just fill it up with a hose. I go down to a pond at the end of the street and get a 5-gallon bucket full of pond water, and it's full of microbes and plankton and insect larvae and things like that, and I pour it in the pond to inoculate it with native duckweed and other things. I use mosquito dunks to prevent mosquito larvae. And if you're not familiar with mosquito dunks, you can buy them at the hardware store. It's so much of a dunk per gallon. It's like half a dunk for this size pond every 30 days. And it's a biologic, it's not an insecticide. So it's perfectly harmless for people, perfectly harmless for your pets. It's harmless for the wildlife that drink out of the pond. It doesn't hurt amphibians, it doesn't hurt fish, it only hurts mosquito larvae. And a word about insecticides. When you spray for mosquitoes, when your village sprays for mosquitoes, insecticides are not specific for mosquitoes. They kill everything. So when you're spraying for mosquitoes, you're killing the butterflies, you're killing the bees, you're killing the lightning bugs, like that one on the right, the dragonflies and the moths, you're killing all that stuff. So I just ask you to please use it judiciously. Don't spray every 30 days because 30 days is up. Spray if you have a problem, if you really need to, but try and use the least amount to get the job done, and talk to your village. Now, of course, the pesticide companies, they want you to spray every 30 days because they make more money, but you're killing a lot of insects. Here's an example, and these photos are not mine, they're my friend Joey's. He posted these in 24. He was on a walk with his dog and he found dozens of dead bumblebees laying on the ground, and they were all around this sign from a lawn company. And obviously the chemicals in the spray had killed all the bees. So do we really need perfect golf course-like lawns? We tried to hire a lawn company years and years ago. They wouldn't do it unless they had 5 applications a year. I wanted just a spring application. Nope, can't do it. You got to sign up for the full 5 course. Well, that's how they make their money. So of course they recommend that. But that's a lot of chemicals in your lawn. So again, please use chemicals judiciously. But here's the pond last summer. You see all the sedges and native plants growing up around it, and the wildlife likes it. They like to come in and get drinks, and we like to see them. We have a bird bath, and the songbirds use it, but the Cooper's hawk uses it too, and the raccoons use it. And sometimes the deer use it. The coolest thing we got, though, was a heated bird bath. I think we found this at Farm and Fleet in Woodstock. You plug it in, and it heats up just enough so the water doesn't freeze in the wintertime. So here's a yellow-rumped warbler drinking at 9 below zero. And here's a cardinal getting a drink after a 9-inch blizzard in the wintertime. The chairs in our family room face out, and this is right outside our window. So we get lots of bird activity all winter long. It's a great feature if you want to see more wildlife. Check out a heated bird bath. And of course, I have my trail cams. I have 2 now. One is set up on this log, and I leave it there all the time because the wildlife uses that log like a highway, and I get so much action on that log, it's amazing. I call it the magic log. And the other one I move around the yard, and I put it on various deer trails and get different action here and there. They're out 365 days a year. They're motion activated. They have infrared light, so they shoot at night, and the wildlife doesn't know that they're being filmed. So my talk today, I want to talk about knowing about wildlife and not fearing it. I want to celebrate local biodiversity. I'm going to share amazing facts. And I promise everybody here is going to learn something that you didn't know before. And I want to teach safe and peaceful coexistence. So we're going to start with the neighbors that we have a love-hate relationship with. The white-tailed deer. We love them when they have their cute little twin fawns. You know, we just love to see that. And they make themselves at home. This is our front yard, the little bit of woods in front of our house. And they're perfectly at home in our yard. And they're perfectly at home in our garden. And this is why we can't have nice plants. And I'm here to tell you, the deer don't read the list of deer-resistant plants. They eat what they want to eat. And if the deer let it live, we can have it in our garden. This is our hydrangea bush outside our perfectly legal attached shed. And this is the best it looks all summer long because the deer mow it every day. And here's a deer eating a Virginia creeper to show how she can make the whole thing disappear in seconds. And this is how you can plant a row of hostas and come out the next morning and it's like they were never there. So they do make deer spray that you can buy in the hardware store. It comes in a concentrate. You add so much per gallon, put it in a spray bottle, spray it on the plants. It's really stinky and it works very well. But remember, if it rains a lot, you're going to have to reapply it. And if the plant grows a lot, you know, you sprayed it when the plant was this tall, now it's this tall, the new leaves don't have spray on them. And if you forget to spray, the deer find out real quick and they'll nibble. The other reason we hate them is the bucks do antler rubs in the fall to mark their territory. They'll scrape the bark off the little saplings to show there's a big strong buck here, you know, stay out of my territory. And one time they got our, gosh, 7 or 8 inch diameter maple tree in the front yard and did all that damage to it. And somehow it survived. But now we put cages around the little saplings. It's the only way to keep them safe. So if I plant a little bur oak or something like that, I'm going to have a cage around it. But here's why we love the deer. When you see a big, magnificent buck in the backyard, you just feel privileged. Wow, is that great? There's an 8-point buck, there's a 12-point buck, there's one with abnormal antlers. Look, they're fighting in the backyard. I just love seeing that. Or the magnificent guy like this walking right in front of the trail cam. Now, you can't tell how old they are by the size of their rack. You tell by how thick their neck is and how low their belly hangs. So this one's a 10-pointer, or no, 8-pointer, but his neck is kind of skinny. Look how thick this one's neck is. So the first one's probably 3.5 years old. This one's like 5.5 or 6.5 years old. Our neighbors call this one Obi because of his abnormal antlers. You can tell this individual every time. And his antlers look like that every year. He's just a big old guy who's been around for a while. One thing people ask me about sometimes is, what are those growths on the inside of their hind legs? Those are the tarsal glands. The tarsus or the hock is the deer's ankle. It's the equivalent of your ankle. Everything below that is the equivalent of your foot. And those glands look like a wound or a tumor or something, but it's not. It's a normal structure, and it secretes a stinky substance. And the way they use it is they rub the hocks together and they dribble a little bit of urine on that carries the scent down to the ground. And it's a very strong scent. So they use it to communicate with other deer. So the does are communicating when they're in heat. The bucks are communicating that it's their territory and the other bucks should be careful. And this all leads to the rut, which happens from late October to November into December, where the bucks are looking to mate with the does and they chase them all around. And you see it over and over. It kind of reminds me of a singles dog. Hey, baby, can I buy you a drink? And then in usually February, early March, the bucks drop their antlers and they have the circular scars where the antlers fell off. They grow new antlers every year, which makes it the fastest growing bone in the animal kingdom. That whole giant antler grows in just a few months. And after the rut is over, the does gather together throughout the winter. We usually see herds of 6 to 12, and they come through the yard frequently, so that our backyard looks like this. Looks like a cattle feedlot. Those are all deer hoof prints. And again, this is why we can't have nice plants. But it leads to the awe part and why we love the deer, the cute little fawns. And when they're wobbly and newborn and can barely keep up, they're just adorable. I love seeing these every spring. So you'll sometimes see a fawn curled up by itself during the day, maybe in the woods, maybe in your garden against the house, maybe even in the lawn. And people always are panicked that the mother isn't anywhere around. Oh, this is an abandoned fawn. We have to rescue it. We have to scoop it up and call a wildlife rehabilitator. It's an orphan now, but it's not. This is normal deer behavior. The little fawn can't keep up with the doe during the day. And so the mother will drop it off in the early dawn, someplace that she thinks is safe, and leave it there all day. Then she'll come back at dusk and fetch it. So you might, when you see them, the little white spots, camouflage them in that dappled sunlight under the leaves, and they have no scent at all so that they don't attract predators, and they just lay there still. So if you see one, of course, you want to take photos of it, but you need to stay far enough back that you don't spook it, because if you make it get up and run, it's going to be harder for the mother to find it later that evening. So stay back, keep your dog on a leash, just work on the other side of the house, and it'll be gone the next day. But snap your pictures and enjoy it. That one in the lower right, I have a funny story. We used to have a Jack Russell Terrier named Betty. And I'd let Betty out in the backyard and she was under voice command, but I always stood out there and controlled her. I stood on the deck. And we got home from somewhere one day and I opened the back door to let her out. And Betty ran out on the deck and I looked up and there's a doe and a fawn right there in the lawn. Oh, it's too late. And I yelled, Betty. And of course she ignored me. She was all focused on those deer. So what happened was the fawn dropped in the grass like it had been shot and the doe took off through the woods. And my brilliant Betty ran right out, jumped right over the fawn and chased the deer through the woods. So I went around the fawn and caught Betty in the woods and carried her back to the house. And we watched through the window I took that picture, but we watched through the window and the doe came back 30 minutes later and collected the fawn, and they just went on their merry way like nothing had happened. So their strategy works. But you get those awe moments, that mother-child bond. It's just great to see them taking care of each other. And when you look out the window and the little fawns are foraging in your yard, sometimes they come up and look in the window like they're real curious. This is the part when we love the deer. And sometimes they have twins. We typically have 4 does in our that we see regularly in our yard every spring with fawns, and typically 2 of them have twins. When they're adequate resources, they often have multiple births. And with really good resources, which is pretty much suburbia, they sometimes have triplets. And we usually see one of the does every other year will have triplets. And if you think the doe walking by with 1 fawn is cute, when they come by with 3, it just melts your heart. And they follow along like good little kids, minding mom. And they come in the day. Sometimes one is a little smaller than the others, a little bit of a runt, but usually catches up by the end of the summer. And they're curious of the camera, just like the adults. And anyone who here has a dog or a cat has seen them get the zoomies when they're just so energetic and they have to run and exercise, and it's play, and it teaches them agility, and it builds up their muscles. And I filmed this with my iPhone, just standing on the back deck. Now here it comes running across, and this is all one shot. There's no editing here. It enters the woods here, with the other one chasing it, and it comes out the other side that quick. So fawn zoomies are great. So moving on to our nocturnal neighbors, our raccoons and opossums. This raccoon was foraging in the pond at Flint Creek Savannah by the farmhouse, looking for crayfish and frogs. And I sometimes see them in the yard, usually at dusk, sometimes walking through the grass, but they climb our mulberry tree to eat the berries as well. But more typically, they're nocturnal, and so we see them on the trail cam at night. The little kids stay with the mom for over a year and follow her around. And they have little raccoon parties. Raccoons are skilled at urban living. They live with people. They like to live in hollow trees, under decks, in attics and chimneys. You definitely want a chimney cap if you come out of the chimney. Weren't expecting that, were you? They're curious about the cameras too. And when your bird feeders are knocked over on the ground and you want to figure out what's doing it, a trail cam's a great way to find out. So we put out grape jelly and orange slices for the orioles every spring, and finding the grape jelly on the ground, I thought it was a raccoon, but the trail cam proved it. And they're very dexterous with their little hands, reaching and feeling and finding things. They have very sensitive nerves, just like our hands. And they like to have pool parties in our pond. And the mother's feeling around again, looking for frogs and crayfish. And feeling around on that piece of driftwood that's there for the frogs. So raccoons, somebody asked me about rabies. In Lake County, Illinois, rabies is almost exclusively in bats. They normally get 1 or 2 bats a year that is positive for rabies. That's it. We have hardly any rabies in Lake County. Any mammal could get rabies, but it's been decades since a rabid raccoon has been seen here. But it varies in other parts of the country. In central Illinois, rabies is primarily in skunks. On the East Coast, it's primarily raccoons. Down in Texas, it's primarily foxes. But if you see a sick raccoon around here, it's probably distemper, which is a canine disease that doesn't affect people. But it's a good reason to keep your dogs up to date on their vaccinations. Opossums. These are one of my favorites, and they're going to be your favorite when I'm done. But people don't like them because of the naked tail. They think they're just big, giant rats. But they're really quite cool and interesting when you learn about them. First of all, they're a marsupial, like a kangaroo. They have a pouch. And the babies are born the size of a honeybee, little tiny pink naked things. And they crawl from the birth canal up into the pouch where they latch onto a teat and nurse, and that's where they grow and develop. So the mother carries them around in her pouch as they develop. Again, they're primarily nocturnal, but we see them in the crabapple tree eating crab apples. And when the big scary bipedal hominid comes around the corner and it's under the bird feeder, they run up a tree in defense. They bare their teeth, but they don't lunge and snap at you like a dog might. They just want to show that they're dangerous. They show their teeth and hope that you leave them alone. And the other thing they undergo is involuntary catatonia. So if you ever seen a video of fainting goats when they get stressed, it's kind of like that. So they faint, and possums are famous for playing dead, and they can do that. If you wonder what that little tunnel under your deck and who's living there, is it a possum or a skunk or raccoon? A trail cam's a good way to find out. So when we had our deck redone a few years ago, the contractors uncovered there was a nest of baby raccoons. Now they had grown big enough where they had outgrown the pouch. And so the mother had parked them in her little nest under our deck. And when they were uncovered, the contractor was nice enough to go leave them alone, go around and work on the other side of the house for the rest of the day. And the mother came and moved them to a safer place that night. So here's a quick video, and I'm going to explain. When they're too big to ride in the pouch anymore, they ride on the mother's back. And I wish she had come right down the tree there, but she's way off in the background. But you can see the mother's eye reflection and then all the baby's eye reflections on her back. So there it is again. And there's a still. So cute to see in person. Now, if you have a cat, you know, the cats groom themselves, and they're very meticulously clean, and possums are meticulously clean as well. And if you've read news reports that possums eat thousands of ticks and reduce the risk of Lyme disease, I don't know that it's proven that they eat thousands of ticks, but in a study, captive possums were infested with ticks, and they quickly removed every last one. They're very efficient at removing ticks, and so they do eat a lot of ticks, and eating ticks is a good thing in my book. But they're a very clean animal. If you have a cat, you've seen it rub its cheeks on things that it wants to mark, its favorite things like your ankle or favorite toys. And these possums like the lichens that grow on this log and rub their cheeks on it. But the coolest thing they do is they gather leaves for their nest. So they pick them up in their mouth and they shove them under their belly, and they use their hind feet to shove them behind, and they curl them up in their prehensile tail. And they carry the leaves back to their nest in their prehensile tail to line their nest with nice soft leaves. And here's another one with a big leaf full of tails, or tail full of leaves. Moving on to other nocturnal animals, the engineers, the American beavers. This beaver I photographed in Spring Creek at the Hill and Dale Preserve. A couple of years they had a dam on Flint Creek at the Flint Creek Preserve, Flint Creek Savannah. They build dams where they hear running water because the running water suggests that there's a narrow area that would hold a dam. And so instinctively, that's where they want to build their dams. Now, the neighbors always complain because they don't want flooding, but they're ecosystem engineers, and they provide really good habitat for a lot of different species, for various birds, for various fish, for amphibians, and things like that. They help prevent erosion. And back before the fur traders wiped out most of the beavers, rivers didn't flow freely, but they had pond after pond after pond behind each beaver dam along them. They build lodges that have an underwater entrance, and they cache a bunch of sticks in the water outside of that entrance so that they can feed on the little sticks all winter long. They eat the tender bark. Those lodges are 15 to 35 feet in diameter. They can be quite big. So knowing that the dam was there and I found some beaver damage on trees, I put up the trail cam on the CFC property and got a video of the beaver chewing on the tree. Their teeth grow continuously so that they never wear down. As the teeth wear down, they continue growing so they stay the right length. They're really sharp and they can take great big bites out of the wood. And then I got it as he felled the tree and he leaps back, but the tree caught up in the branches above so it didn't fall all the way to the ground. So I went to their lodge and I set my trail cam up on the lodge. I got 120 videos in one night. So busy beaver is really a true thing. And I'm not going to show all 120, but there were 2 adults and 2 teenagers. And they just kept going back and forth, dragging sticks up. Handfuls of mud. They carry handfuls of mud in their 2 front hands and walk on their hind feet like a T-Rex. There's another double handful of mud and pack it in there to fill the gaps, and more mud and more mud. There's a handful of grass to hold it all together. See, reed canary grass is good for something. And more mud. You see that big flat tail. They slap the water with that tail as a warning to the other beavers when there's a threat. Now he notices that one stick is sticking out too far, so we better jam that in a little tighter. Push, push, push. Beavers are big, 25 to 70 pounds. Most of them are around 40 pounds. There's a big old log. Another stick in it just right. Now I want you to see how graceful and athletic they are. Oops, wrong button. Watch how this one dismounts from the lodge. Whoa. He rolls off like a baked potato. So moving on, the gliding ghost, the southern flying squirrels. A lot of people don't know that we have flying squirrels, but they like old growth oak forests. They're cavity nesters. So wherever there are cavities, you're going to have flying squirrels. But they're strictly nocturnal, so you almost never see them. They're thick in our yard. I see them on the trail cam all the time. I think I've seen them in person 3 times in all that time. And this was one of them. They're smaller than a gray squirrel. They're the size of a chipmunk. They're dove gray in color. They have great big eyes because they're nocturnal. They have a very flat tail. They have a fold of skin between their front leg and their hind leg called a patagium. They stretch their legs out like the letter X, and it makes a membrane like a wingsuit so that they can glide long distances, 30 to 65 feet from the top of a tree down, with a record of 150 feet. They steer by moving their legs and moving that flat rudder-like tail. So this one, it's a wren house. I emptied out in the fall. I saw a nest in it in late winter, and I knew it wasn't a bird building a nest in the wintertime. I knew it was a mammal, and I saw the chew marks around the opening, so I figured it was a flying squirrel. So I got my camera, and I went and I knocked on it like a door, and the squirrel popped out, and I took a picture, and he popped right back in. And they're very communal. Very often there are multiple squirrels in a nest, and they huddle together for warmth in the wintertime. But more typically, I get them on the trail cam. So that vertical tree is a hickory tree, so they're gathering nuts, and you can see the fold of skin between the front leg and the hind leg. You can see how flat that tail is compared to a gray squirrel. You just go boing, boing, boing all over the place. And sometimes they do a photo bomb when another animal triggers the camera. They go gliding by. They photobomb the raccoons. And here it is in slow motion. Sometimes just by themselves. And this one wanted a drink, but he involuntarily went for a swim, and it surprised him. Whoops. He didn't like it, so he ran up the tree. And here's the coolest thing about flying squirrels. They fluoresce bright pink in ultraviolet light. Now, first of all, who figured that out? Well, it was a botanist who was studying lichens and funguses, which glow in ultraviolet light. So he had his UV light shining it in the treetops at night up in Wisconsin in 2019, just a few years ago. And he heard the chittering of the flying squirrels, and he put his light on them, and it glowed bright pink, and he was surprised. And he reported it. And since then, museum people have looked at museum specimens of flying squirrels and found that all 3 species of flying squirrels in the US glow bright pink in ultraviolet light. Now, why would they do that? Well, we have a bias that we think other animals see the world that we see the world, and they just don't. Many animals can see ultraviolet light, for instance, owls. Many owls can see ultraviolet light and see things that we can't see. So the benefit is it might help the flying squirrel camouflage because it's fluorescing the same way the lichens and the funguses are, so it blends in against the owl. But surprisingly, many owls glow a bright pink in ultraviolet light themselves. And so as the flying squirrel goes gliding by, it might confuse the owl, where the owl thinks it's another owl and leaves it alone. Now the secretive stinkers, the mustelids, the skunks, weasels, and mink. And I have to say, they've given skunks their own family now, but they're still closely related. So luckily, we don't have a lot of skunks in Barrington, and their numbers seem to wax and wane. Some years we have a lot, some years not so many. But one time my mother-in-law was over eating dinner with us and she was looking out the window behind us. Patty and I were facing in and she said, "What are all those black and white kitties coming out from under your desk?" And it was a mother skunk with 4 babies. And of course, you know, poor Betty, a hunting dog that she was, had no clue they were there. We never smelled anything. She never ran into them, but I never let her run around unsupervised. But skunks can spray 10 to 12 feet very accurately and they aim for your face. But they don't want to spray. They'll hiss and they'll stomp their feet. And that's a sign for you to leave the premises quickly. And if you do, you'll be fine. If you get sprayed, tomato juice doesn't really help. You need a mixture of baking soda, hydrogen peroxide, and dish soap. And you can find the proportions online. But skunks are also resistant to bee stings. And twice we've had them dig up yellow jacket nests in our yard and eat all the honeycomb. And so they did us a nice job of ridding us of the yellow jackets. So when their tail is down, they're content. When their tail is up, they're agitated, and that's a good sign to back away. And I don't know what set this one off. The other mustelid is the long-tailed weasel that we have. And again, weasels are nocturnal, so a lot of people don't see these. They're very secretive. They're also very high energy and very active. I was getting mice in the shed, and so I set this humane trap to catch the mice and move them back out to the woods. And I accidentally caught a weasel one night. And I want you to see how fast it is when I let it go. Ding, and it's gone. So they have very high metabolism. They're hyperactive. They have to eat 40% of their body weight every day. That's like me eating 80 pounds of food a day just to maintain their body weight because they're just jumping and moving and active and hunting. They're voracious predators. They eat mice and voles, chipmunks, squirrels, whatever they can catch. They can take down something as big as a rabbit, which is much bigger than they are. But they're just always moving, always hunting, always looking, springing around. There's one coming through the woods. Here's one who caught a little mouse. And the other mustelid is the mink. Now, a lot of people think that mink are escapees because we used to have mink farms in the area, but mink are native to every county in Illinois. So these are native minks. They're semi-aquatic. They have waterproof fur. They have semi-webbed hind feet. They're very good in the water. We don't see them in our yard. We're 2 blocks from the lake. But they're bigger than the weasel. They're thicker. They're darker brown. And you see they move more deliberately. And here's one called a little mouse. Okay, coyotes. These are the ones that evoke the most emotional response. And every time someone sees a coyote in my neighborhood, they send out the neighborhood email blast. Look out, everyone, there's a coyote. Lock up your children, lock up your dogs. We're all in danger. But coyotes are really intelligent and they coexist with people very easily. They're in every major city. So you name a city, Chicago, name one, Atlanta, New York City, Boston, Seattle, they're all full of coyotes. They live in every cemetery, they live in every green space, every golf course, every park, every forest preserve is just chock full of coyotes. They go walking down the streets. One of the researchers said, if you live within a metropolitan area, at some point you've passed within a few yards of a coyote. They're that common. And they hide, so you don't notice it. Their other nickname is the ghost dog because they're shy and they're very good at avoiding people. Unless they lose their fear, and they lose their fear of people by being fed, so don't feed them. But most nuisance coyotes are really just an unlucky animal that happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. Here's a picture of a pair in our backyard. We don't see them ourselves every day, but I get them on the trail cam certainly every week. They're very common in Tower Lakes, but they're really common everywhere. But they're just good at hiding. And the neighbors always ask, that thing was huge. Was it a coy wolf? And you might have seen there was a show on PBS in 2014 called Meet the Coy Wolf. And their big thing was that they're wolf-coyote hybrids, which makes it sound scary, like the wolf and the coyote mated last month, and the offspring are 50-50 coyote and wolf. Wolves are 3 times bigger than coyotes, so that's going to make it bigger and scarier and more dangerous and a better television show. But the fact of the matter is, a coy wolf is not a thing. So if you think about it, back when Europeans landed in America, wolves inhabited the whole eastern United States and coyotes were west of the Mississippi. There really were no coyotes in the east. And of course, the Europeans wiped out all the wolves, and now they only live in Canada, northern Minnesota, northern Michigan, northern Wisconsin. But as the coyotes moved east, and they've moved all the way through New England up into Canada, they're very successful with people. There was some early on interbreeding to where there are trace amounts of wolf DNA in the coyote genome. But what they don't tell you is there are also trace amounts of domestic dog in the coyote genome, which instead of making them scarier and more aggressive, you think would make them more loyal and friendly. But they don't mention that part. So the point is that the wolves that our grandparents knew are the same, not the wolves, the coyotes, the eastern coyotes that our grandparents knew are the same coyotes that we know today. There's nothing new, there's nothing different. There's really no such thing as a coy wolf. Anybody here have a golden retriever or a Labrador? How much does it weigh? 80 pounds? How big do you think coyotes are? 25 to 35 pounds. So Stan Gert has done the Urban Coyote Project for 25 years. They've captured and taken data on 1,480 some coyotes, and they put radio collars on many, many of them. So they know a lot about them. The average weight is 25 to 35 pounds. Exceptional coyotes can hit 40. And the record in 25 years, they had one coyote that hit 50 pounds. So they're much smaller than you think. And they look scary, and there's nothing of size reference out there in the woods when you see it. So they look bigger than they are. They're really not that big. Average lifespan, only 1.7 years. Just long enough to have a litter or two. Only 20% reach 3 years of age, and only 1% reach 9 years of age. And their record was 14. And they eat mice and voles, chipmunks, rabbits, squirrels, whatever they can catch. They avoid raccoons and skunks. Too much fight. They do eat goose eggs, and we have too many geese, so they help control that population. They get the occasional fawn. That's sad. We like fawns. They're cute, but we have a deer overpopulation problem as well. The deer don't have any predators except the occasional fawn that a coyote gets and cars that hit them. So we see them on the trail cams. We see them in the morning, 9:23 a.m. See them in the afternoon, 4:13 p.m. On this one, Patty and I were working on the other side of the yard, and the trail cam showed the coyotes stampede while we were out there working, and we had no clue. They were very good at avoiding us. And this one was just earlier this week. And was piercing yellow eyes. And they like to drink out of our little pond. And see, the one has a bad eye, the one in the middle. You see only one eye reflects. We've seen that one 4 years in a row. We call them pirate. Now, people ask me, are my cats and dogs in danger? And you're not going to like what I'm going to tell you. The people who studied the coyotes found a feral population of cats, 127 cats. They put radio collars on all of them. Coyotes got 7% of them, which is a very low number, but it's not zero. Coyotes will get the occasional cat. Big predators kill small predators, and not for food, but for competition. So they will occasionally take small dogs and cats. They do, they avoid the bigger dogs. So when you let your cats outside and you think, not you, many people think, my cat's a little sweetie and she doesn't do any harm and she never brings anything home, so she doesn't hunt. All cats hunt. So here's yet another cat of a neighbor's, and you notice they have collars. You know, they're not feral cats. Here's one hunting in my yard, and they're hunting birds too. They're not just hunting mice. The Audubon Society says that between 1 and 4 billion birds are killed by outdoor cats every year. Now, we can't wrap our number around the number 1 billion. So we can figure out 1 million. So let's talk about time. How long is 1 million seconds? Anyone know? 11.5 days. How long is 1 billion seconds? 31.5 years. 1 billion is a big number.
And cats are not native to the US, and outdoor cats are killing that many birds every year. So please keep your cats indoors. Now, people tell me, I've been letting my cat outside for 12 years and nothing ever happened. And that's poor, poor planning, poor parenting. I've been wearing a seatbelt for 50 years. Nothing ever happened. I don't need to wear seatbelts, right? Well, I might need one on the way home. So if you let your cat out, you're taking a chance. And people tell me, but my cat likes to be outside. Well, imagine telling your pediatrician, my children like to ride loose in the car. They don't want to be in a car seat. They want to be in the front seat with no restraint. They want to ride in the back of a pickup truck. That's poor parenting. You let your cat out, you're taking a chance. You get away with it until the one night you don't. And as a veterinarian, I can't tell you how many people come in crying, our cat never came home, died a grisly death, and it was preventable. If your cat's inside, it can't be hit by a car, it can't be attacked by another cat, it can't be attacked by a coyote. So please keep your cats inside. Oops, wrong button again. Foxes. These are one of my favorites. They're so pretty with that beautiful red coat and that thick tail. And people wonder, they're bright red, they stand out. How can they stand out like that? Again, it's that bias. We have trichromatic vision. We see three colors, red, green, and blue. Most mammals have dichromatic vision. They only see green and blue. They're essentially red-green colorblind. So for most mammals, the color red looks like another shade of green or a shade of gray. And so for most mammals, the foxes blend right in. And if you think about it, baby bison are red, baby mooses are red, little baby sandhill cranes are red, and the sandhills paint themselves with red mud so that they blend in with the cattails when they sit on their nest. Hunters wear blaze orange vests because the deer can't see the orange color. So they have the beautiful, thick, luxurious coat and characteristic black stockings. The other weird thing about them is you look at them, you think that fox looks funny. And it's like when a person you know shaves off his mustache, and you look at him, you look different. Did you lose weight? Foxes have vertical pupils like a cat. They're members of the canine family, and we think of dogs as having round pupils, right? Well, the fox is a canine. Shouldn't it have round pupils? It has vertical pupils like a cat. Well, it turns out that the vertical pupil is more of a size thing than it is a family thing, dog and cat family. So it helps them judge distance for jumping on prey from a shorter distance when they have a vertical pupil. So a smaller predator, like a cat or a fox, how big do you think foxes weigh? 6 to 15 pounds, about the same size as your cat. They look big, but they're really much smaller than you think. So they have vertical pupils for jumping on prey that's closer to them. The bigger predators can judge distances a little farther away, like your dogs. What's a big predator that has round pupils? Lion and tiger. They're cats and they have round pupils. So it's not a dog-cat thing. But they're just beautiful and magnificent with those black stockings. I don't know why he's sitting there looking at the camera. But they're just so graceful too. Love seeing them. Now the coyotes will persecute the foxes and chase them away, but if they're adequate resources, they can get along better. And in the suburbs, there's plenty of food for everybody, plenty of mice and voles. Here's a rabbit and the fox chasing it. I'm sure the rabbit's way too fast to be caught. Right, moving on to birds. We're going to wrap it up with birds. The bouncing baby wood ducks. So I do a little monitoring of the wood duck boxes at Flint Creek Savannah. So this is going back to CFC preserves. The opening of the wood box is about, what's that? Almost 8 feet high, 7.5 feet high, too high for me to look in. So I stick my cell phone in and hit the button. If I see a duck in there, that's the one I'm going to set my trail cam up on to see what's going on. The one interesting thing wood ducks do is called nest parasitism, where one wood duck will be in there laying eggs. A second wood duck will come and lay some eggs by the first wood duck's nest and then leave and let the first wood duck raise her babies for it. What I really wanted to get was the babies jumping out. Now, these are cavity nesters. They nest in hollow trees as well as nest boxes. And when it's time to fledge, the babies just leap out. And sometimes those nests are 50 feet up in the air and the babies just jump out and bounce off the ground. They look like popcorn. And then they follow mom down to the pond. And usually we have 2 broods of wood ducks at the pond at Flint Creek Savannah. Moving on to the raptors. The raptors are the hawks and the owls. We'll talk about the owls first. And we have several species of owls, but most commonly we see the great horned owls and the screech owls. First of all, their feathers are superb camouflage. Look how much that looks like the bark on the oak tree. When they're next to the oak tree, you can hardly see them, even though it's a big bird. And they have those charismatic eyes. And people love owls with those bright yellow eyes, but the eyes are fixed in their sockets. You and I can look to the right or the left or up or down. They have to turn their head to look to the right or the left or up or down. They can turn their head 270 degrees almost completely around. And those ear tufts are just tufts of feathers. They have nothing to do with the ears. There's no flesh behind them and the ear openings aren't there. The ear openings are on the side of their head, and the feathers on their face are called a facial disc, and they funnel the sound towards the opening of the ears. Now, in many owls, one ear opening is slightly higher than the other. They're asymmetrical, so that the sound hits the openings a millisecond apart, and it helps them judge distances more accurately. But in the great horned owl, the ear openings are symmetrical. And again, those piercing yellow eyes. All these owl pictures were taken in our backyard. This is through our back window. We were building a puzzle at dusk. And I thought, look at that big crow out there. Wait a minute, that's not a crow. And they land in front of the trail cam sometimes, just checking things out. Magnificent predators, giant talons. Their favorite prey, skunks. They have little fringes on their feathers that makes their flight silent. So they hit the skunk from above. Skunk never sees it coming, doesn't have time to spray. But even if it did, the owls have very little sense of smell, and so they don't seem to mind it. They also prey on opossums. I have a picture of an owl holding half of an opossum, but I'm not going to share with you. And they check out the pond. The driftwood shift. It wasn't expecting that. It's not anchored down. Now watch when the squirrel sees the owl. Watch how his tail puffs up. Right there. Up. And then it starts. Now, why doesn't the owl attack? Because it knows that the squirrel is way too agile to catch when the squirrel sees the owl. It just watches it climb higher and higher. And there's an owl watching an opossum on the magic log. Why doesn't it attack the opossum? Don't know. Probably wasn't hungry that night. The other owl we get are screech owls, and these are little guys. They're not much bigger than a robin or so, about this tall. They love wood duck boxes, and they'll sit in the hole and bask in the sun. They come in red phase and gray phase. This was our original wood duck box, and the tree fell down, so we lost it. So we put this one up and really struggled to keep the squirrels out. But you see the red phase on the left, and the other two are gray phase. And they love basking in the little holes. But a branch fell and knocked this one off, and we've never replaced it. But sometimes they nest in natural tree cavities. This is in a forest preserve up in Lake County. And sometimes they land right in front of the trail cam. So this one caught a little insect. I don't know what, maybe a grasshopper or something, or a katydid. And this one's caught something as well and will fly away in slow motion. They're all legs when the feathers are pushed back. The other raptors are the hawks. And again, we have a lot of species of hawks, but mainly we're going to see red tails and Cooper's hawks. So the red tails are the big ones. They have a white breast with that dark belly band. The adults have a bright red tail and easy to tell when they're flying. And they often will hunt squirrels under the bird feeder. We have baffles on the bird feeders where they can't get up onto the bird feeder itself, but they'll forage on the ground for any spilled seed. And look at the size of those talons. And they hunt mice and voles and things like that, but they'll hunt chipmunks and squirrels and even rabbits. So the adults have dark eyes and a reddish tail. The juveniles have yellow eyes and still have a banded tail. So the last two are juveniles. And you can see the various bird feeders that we've had over the years. So here's a little adventure. I was working on my computer and I saw a big commotion outside the window, and my camera's always right next to me. So I grabbed it and started shooting. And here's a red tail by the bird feeder, by the pole of the bird feeder. Oops, sorry, wrong button. So when he slumped down, the squirrel saw the hawk coming and ran up the baffle, inside the baffle. The hawk got a hold of its tail and the pole at the same time. So you can see the squirrel's tail and the pole. And he realized he couldn't yank the squirrel out by its tail because he had the pole too. So he hung there for like a minute and a half, which is a long time when you're just hanging there. Then he started looking around like, now what am I going to do? So he loosened up and the squirrel shot up into the baffle and the hawk kicked off. You can see that little tuft of fur at the bottom of the pole that came out of the squirrel's tail. And he flew away and the squirrel lived to fight another day. Here's a juvenile in front of the trail cam. And here's the kerfuffle, and I don't know what's going on here. In slow-mo, one lands, it's on a trail, I don't know, but when the other one comes in, the first one kicks his talons at it. And then the third one comes over to see what's going on. And would you wish it was just 10 feet this way? So the other hawk we get are the Cooper's hawks, which are a smaller bird, and they hunt more songbirds, but they also hunt mice and voles, and I've seen them get chipmunks. They're kind of a dove gray with that reddish streaked breast. They're very agile flyers and piercing eyes and just beautiful animals. And a couple of years, they've built nests in the trees in the woods right behind our house, and we've got to see the little white fluffy chicks and see them grow up into adults. And one year, the fledglings decided to use our swimming pool as a bird bath. So every afternoon at 4 o'clock, they would come to the first step of the steps going down into the water, and they take turns getting on that first step and just flopping around like any bird in a bird bath. Then they'd get out and be all sopping wet, and then they'd fly away. And we got to see them every day. It was great. Here's a Cooper's chasing a squirrel, and in slow-mo, you can see the squirrel is just way too agile for the hawk to catch it. They have to rely on catching him unawares. And there's another one where the squirrel just seems to be toying with the hawk. And that's a big prey item for a small hawk. And it's like, yeah, try it. You can't catch me. So finishing up, coexisting, how do we coexist? Protect your pets. Here's yet another cat with a collar on the coyote log. Don't leave your pets unattended, please, especially at night. They're at risk for coyotes. They're at risk for great horned owls. Twice I had clients come in because they were walking their little dog at night and a great horned owl attacked their dog when they were standing right there. But because they were standing right there, they could scare the owl away and the dog just had minor scratches. Your dogs are far more likely to be hit by a car or in a fight with another dog if they're unattended. So walk them on a leash. Consider a catio, like a patio with a C. It's like a screened-in porch for your cat. Look it up online. There are all kinds of different designs. But that way your cat can be outside and get some sunshine and fresh air. It can watch the birds, but it's protecting your cat from the predators, but it's protecting the prey from your cat. The 3 R's, respect their space. Don't approach too closely. If you approach so closely that you change their behavior, you're bothering them. You got too close. Remove attractants. Make sure you don't have places for them to live. Again, you don't want to be feeding them. You don't want them, pooping on your deck, the raccoons and things like that. The coyote is patrolling. He's not stalking you. The newborn fawns are not abandoned. And we didn't talk about rabbits, but cottontail rabbits only feed their young once a day. And guess when they do it? Middle of the night. So you find the nest with the little baby rabbits and you watch it all day long and don't see the mother and you think, oh, it's abandoned, I have to rescue it. Nope, you're kidnapping those babies away from their mother. Leave them alone, keep your dog on the leash away from the nest. The mother will be back and feed them every night and they'll be fine. And the thing about snakes, we didn't talk about snakes, but you need to know there are no venomous snakes in the Barrington area. There are no rattlesnakes, there are no copperheads, there are no cottonmouths. If you see a snake, it's perfectly harmless. But the weird thing is we have fox snakes and milk snakes, and both of those will rattle their tails. So you see a snake rattling its tail and you think you have to kill it. It's not a rattlesnake. The tail comes to a nice sharp point. The snake is perfectly harmless. Please don't kill snakes. They're an important part of the ecosystem. Who to call if you have injured or sick wildlife? Flint Creek Flint Creek Wildlife Rehabilitation or Barn Swallow, which only does birds, will help sick and injured wildlife. Give them a call. If you have a nuisance animal, which is almost never, but if you have raccoons in your garage or your basement, Lake County Animal Care and Control will come out, but they charge a fee. And obviously pest control companies will do the same thing. So we'll finish up with a video of Flint Creek again. Again, they use the creek as a highway, so it's a great way to see a lot of wildlife. So here's a coyote crossing. This was just last spring. There's a doe with her little fawn using the creek like a highway. There's a big old snapping turtle right in the middle. And here comes the fawn and doesn't see the turtle. Now the deer is perfectly safe. The turtle wants nothing to do with those deer. The deer just see that it's something moving and don't know what it is. So the mother comes along. She doesn't see it until right there. Oh, there's something moving. What is it? Maybe I should back up and make sure it's okay. But you see, they're fine. They're not panicking. Then a pair of owls landed. Do you see the one on the left? Now, initially, I thought these were barred owls because they don't have the ear tufts, but now I think they're fledgling great horned owls that just haven't developed those ear tufts yet. I think they left the nest recently. So the second one flies away. The first one hangs out for a little bit. Just seeing if there's anything going on, anything I might be able to eat here. Now here it's starting to rain. So it's 1:16 a.m. Notice how high the water is, not very. The next video is a little after 6 the same day, 6 in the evening the same day. Look how high the creek got in just one day. And look how that poor little fawn has to struggle against the current. But wait, there's 2. It's so much fun to check your trail cam card every day. What did I get last night? So the mother checks out the camera. Or, you know, in any pair of siblings, one is bold and one is shy, right? Well, here's the bold one who's going to lead the way. Mother's checking out the camera. What's that anything? And she better check on the first one. How full the other is. Here comes the shy one. Again, they like to check out novel things. That didn't used to be here, that camera. Fawn likes to check it out too. First, we'll end on Barrington's signature bird, the great blue heron. So you're all mesmerized by these trail cam videos and think, hey, I'd like to get a trail cam too. And people always ask me, what kind of trail cam do you have? Well, I happen to use Browning trail cams, but there are a lot of good ones out there. It's not like one is better than another. It's like cameras, you know, Nikon, Sony, Olympus, Canon, they're all good. I happen to use Browning because of one review that I read. And the woman wrote in this review, something was stealing the vegetables out of my garden, and I wanted to find out what. So I bought one of your cameras, and it turned out it was my neighbor and her daughter. So I figured if a human can't tell that they're being filmed at night, the animals can't be filmed either. So that's the one I want to get. So in terms of features, I just use AA battery cameras. I don't need a battery pack or a solar panel. I just use SD cards You can get them that have Wi-Fi or cellular. They give you a notice every time you record something. You have to pay a monthly fee for those. And if they send the videos to your phone, they limit how many per month. If the camera's far away from you, that's a good feature, but mine's right in my backyard, so I just walk out and get it. I'm not going to pay extra for that. I want the maximum megapixels so that I can get the best resolution images. I want the maximum video, 4K HD. I want the fastest trigger speed I can get, because if the animal's running through and it's a slow trigger speed, the animal's already gone when it starts recording. And there are two types of flash, low glow infrared or no glow infrared. Low glow, no glow means that the animal can't see the infrared, but if you look at the camera, you can see the red glow on the little lamps that are lit up. No glow means they see nothing, but it's darker, and so it's a little grainier, less high quality video. And I only paid like $150 to $170 for my trail cam, so they're pretty cheap compared to regular cameras. And I've only had one trail cam fatality in 8 years. And I came out one day and there was a strap and the bracket still strapped to the tree and the camera was missing. And I found it 20 feet away with a big hole in the back. As it goes, and I'll never know who did it, but I'm pretty sure it was a buck, and I'm pretty sure he got his antlers caught in it and just ripped it out. That's it. I appreciate your attention. And I'll be happy to take any questions, and Patty's got a microphone and Laura does too, so they can run over.
Hi, Marilee Nielsen. Just wondering, it seemed like you scoped out where you were going to put your cam. You just didn't hang it on some random tree.
So there are deer trails through the woods. You can see worn paths, and I figure that's where the action's going to be. So I usually put them on there. I just happened to put it on that log one time, and I got so much action. It's been in the same place for, I think, 3 or 4 years now, and I still get tons of action on the log. And if I'm not getting a lot of action in one place, I'll move it to a different place. So I put it on the pond sometimes, but I put it out in the woods sometimes, the second one.
Can you explain whether or not it's true that a coyote will sit outside the den of a fox and wait for each pup to come out and kill it? I hope it's not true.
I've not heard that. Coyotes often hunt in pairs, sometimes in a whole pack. And coyotes will kill smaller predators out of competition. So it's possible that that's been observed. I don't know that's a regular habit. I do know that foxes will move their den. So when the fox pups are born and they're little tiny like newborn puppies, they'll be there for a week or two and then they'll move them to a different den, and they'll move to 3 or 4 different dens until they're old enough to be running around and following the mother.
First of all, thank you for the education. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
When you were talking about the coyotes, you said that they have a lifespan of 1.7 years.
That's
Is
the average lifespan
average?
in this study of 25 years in the Chicago area.
Okay, is that just their lifespan, or is that due to like
No,
society?
The record was 14 years. It's because it's a hard life out there.
Yeah, okay.
They get hit by cars and they all have
Yeah.
heartworms. Those of you who have dogs know that there's a worm spread by mosquitoes, and you give your dog a pill once a month to keep it from developing heartworms. Nobody's giving coyotes those pills, and they all have heartworms. Over 600 coyotes, blood samples in everyone, 100% positive for heartworms. Not a single negative.
I'm glad I came today because I didn't know who to ask about the situation I had in January. We live in the country, and I've got a dog that's about 45 pounds. At night, I've been taken to using a leash when I take her out at night. She runs during the day with a fence. And this particular night, I had her on a retractable leash. She was out about 15 feet, maybe 20. And I looked up and there was a coyote coming right toward him. And I mean, I thought he looked like he was about 60 pounds, but obviously I'm wrong. He looked big. But I was screaming and waving, yelling my arms. He never took his eyes off my dog. and I backed up and into the garage and pulled the dog in, and then I don't know where it went.
Well, you did the right thing. One comment is veterinarians, and my colleague Jeff will concur, don't like retractable leashes because you really have no control or little control over your dog. If you have a regular like leather leash, you'd be able to reel it in a lot faster. If you're concerned in walking in an area with coyotes, you can carry a stick, you can carry a noisemaker, you can carry a spray to attack them, but you did the right thing. You want to get big and you want to get loud, but you want to back away and get the dog out of there.
Where do you think he was at?
After the dog to remove a smaller predator that's a competitor. But again, they avoid raccoons and skunks for prey, so they don't want a serious fight. But they absolutely will take small dogs and cats. Diane.
I forgot what it was. That was fun. Thank you. How many shots did you have to get before you got the wood ducks fledgling?
How many shots before the wood ducks? Remember, it's motion activated. So I just set my trail cam up and left. I came back 5 days later and they had jumped out 3 days before. But every time a blackbird landed on top, a red-winged blackbird landed on top of the box, it filmed that. Every time the wood ducks came and left, it filmed that. But I had those 2 videos of the babies jumping out.
I have a question from someone online, and I believe that I answered it, Steve, but can you share your video with us? And then in turn, can we share the video with others outside of Barrington? And my response was, I'll send a link to everyone who registered. All images and videos are still property of Steve Barton. Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm happy for them to see it, but they should credit me. A lot of effort to put this together. Thank you.
I've heard that fawns have no scent. Is that true?
It is true. Fawns have no scent, so when the mother leaves them all day long, there's nothing to attract a predator.
Just one more question. Actually, I just forgot my question. Just popped out of my head.
It'll come back.
Yeah. Thank you, sorry.
We've got one.
Okay. I understand that when a coyote has mange, and I'd like to know what mange is, that they'll go into a mulch pile where it's really hot, and they'll go in and just kind of roll in to, I guess, relieve the itch. So what is the mange, and is it true?
So mange are mites, and there's a kind of mite called sarcoptic mange, and they're individual little arachnids with 8 legs that live in the skin, and they cause a dramatic dermatitis where the fur starts falling out. So if you see a coyote or a fox where their tail is really skinny, where they have patches of fur missing on their body or their legs, that's usually sarcoptic mange. It's contagious to other coyotes that they have physical contact with. It can be fatal if it gets widespread. If they're rubbing in the mulch, it's probably just to get temporary relief, but it's really not going to kill the mange. But if the coyote's living a healthy lifestyle and getting lots of good food, its immune system can fight it off to some degree, where they can live with it at low levels to some degree. Again, your dogs get once a month or once every 3-month pills that control heartworms and mange and all kinds of things like that. So it is easily treated, but it's hard to treat a wild animal.
Hi, thank you so much. This was fascinating. I had a question about the pond. So you said you go out every year and you get a 5-gallon bucket of pond water. Like where do you get that from? Just any old
End of the street. Yeah, there's a little temporary pond that has, I see little bugs swimming around in it, and there's duckweed on top, and I just scoop up a bucket and bring it home and pour it in my pond.
Thank you.
So there's something alive growing in the water.
I remember now. How long does it take you to review film? If you, like you say, sometimes 5 days that you have worth of film, do you have to fast forward like crazy or until you see something or?
It depends. Usually I'll look at the thumbnail of the beginning, and if I can see something identifiable, I'll watch it and see what's going on. If it's blank or if it's another raccoon, I'll probably skip right past it. Those raccoons go up and down the log like 4, 5, 6 times every night. There's one over here.
I have a question. Can we move in with you and Patty?
Sure, there'll be some work to do.
What's the most fascinating thing you've ever seen on the camera?
Most fascinating thing I've seen on the camera. I probably like that montage of the beavers building their dam or building their lodge. I'm always excited when I see a weasel or a flying squirrel. Just even a glimpse of one, it's to me, that's pretty exciting. But the great horned owl is pretty cool too. I like them all, the foxes.
All right, I have a couple questions from folks online. 2 about wood ducks. One saying they usually get them and haven't seen them yet. Is it too late in the season? Are they just not going to get wood ducks this year?
I think it's too early. They're just
early.
now moving into their boxes.
Okay.
Somebody on the Bluebird Trail just noticed a wood duck on top of a box like yesterday or the day before.
Okay. And when mounting a wood duck house, how high up and does the direction of the opening, the entry, make a difference?
I'm not an expert on the direction of the opening, but I would expect if you face it south so they can get the morning sun to warm up a little bit. But it also depends on what's in front of the box. If there's a bunch of trees in front of the box, I don't know if that's good or bad. They need room to jump out. The ones on Flint Creek the opening of the hole is only 7.5, 8 feet above the ground. And they do fine there, but typically we've mounted them 15 to 20 feet up. They have to be low enough where you can service them or on a pulley where you can lower them down and clean out the nest every year.
Okay. And then any reason a coyote would continue to lay in our ash pile after burning has cooled it?
After burning what?
Has cooled it. Cooled off.
I imagine it's just soft and comfortable.
Anyone else?
Yeah.
Oh, we've got someone up front. Hold on just a moment.
Thoroughly enjoyable, Steve. So as a
Thank you.
herpetologist, are you catching snakes on your camera?
Don't have a lot of snakes in our yard. The snakes are down by the fen a block away. I do know people who have trail cam set like on rattlesnake dens and have filmed all kinds of interesting behavior in front of the den, including things like weasels going into the den and catching rattlesnakes in the wintertime.
If I can make a book recommendation, because I am the librarian, when you were talking about the difference in perception between animals and people, there's a great book by Ed Young, Y-O-N-G, called An Immense World, that talks a great deal about how differently animals perceive from us, and that we think of ultraviolet sight as something really cool. I'm sure many of you have seen the photos of what certain flowers look like to a bee or a bird, but then talks about they can't see red, so they think we have a magical ability to see stop signs, right? So it's really interesting. I highly recommend it. Ed Young, Y-O-N-G.
I second that recommendation. That's one of the best books I've read in the last 10 years. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve. That really was wonderful. And I think every single one of us learned something new, as you suggested. Thank you all for coming. See you.